So what this work really is about is teaching people how to access that healing power, where it maybe is physical healing, or maybe it's more of a mindset issue, a pattern that has developed over time. This is not to blame the person or say it's their fault or blame the victim or anything, but you're the one who's doing that. So it becomes very empowering. So if you're the one doing it, you're the one who can fix it.
Welcome to Just Healing,
where we say the quiet stuff out loud.
I'm Dr. Deborah.
I'm Michael Munson.
Join us to laugh, cry, cringe, heal.
Not necessarily in that order.
Hello and welcome to this next episode of Just Healing. We are going to be talking about, oh my gosh, something that could really help people heal today. And we have a great guest who's going to introduce himself. So Craig Meriweather, why don't you tell people who you are and your background?
Dr. Deborah, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. Let's dive right in. I am a clinical hypnotherapist, and we're going to be talking about some healing techniques and tools and using the subconscious mind. I've been doing this work for about 15 years or so. I kind of came to it, later in life instead of buying the old, stereotypical cliched sports car in midlife. I decided to kind of pivot more because this work impacted my life, struggled a lot with depression and anxiety, growing up as a teenager and into my 20s. This is the 1980s. So there wasn't a whole lot of help, wasn't a whole lot of talk about it. Certainly wasn't any internet at that point or any SSRI drugs like Prozac or anything. It was all kind of kept hush-hushed. It's whatever talk therapists you might be able to find in the yellow pages in the phone book back in the day when we had those, and whatever book you might be able to find at the library. But, you're 14, 15, 16-year-olds, you don't really know any better. And I just kind of struggled with it for a long time. And so just through circumstances, situations, and the growth of the personal development movement with Tony Robbins and Oprah and all those people in the 90s becoming kind of second wave of that personal development, self-help movement, started looking into maybe how could I become the person I wanted to be, which was at peace and without all the anxiety and depression that I couldn't figure out. And so one of those methodologies that kind of came to my attention, especially as the internet started growing and Prozac got out there and the discussion of it got a little bigger in terms of you could actually talk about depression and being depressed. One of the things that came out was hypnotherapy. And so wanting to utilize any tool I could find that might be helpful, especially this it was exciting to think about being able to tap into the placebo effect into the power of your own subconscious mind. And so I started using hypnotherapy for myself, working with somebody, and did some great healing work. And the slow drip from being a teenager in the 80s to today talking with you has been extraordinarily helpful and growing into the person I want to be. And I just kind of was excited about this work and became a hypnotherapist and hopefully help give back and help other people this way.
So you want to be a hypnotherapist when you grow up?
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that you don't really, you want to be an astronaut, or I don't know what you want to be when you're a kid, an astronaut or a baseball player or something, go out and on adventures in far off lands. But I think one of the things I remember as a kid, they'd ask you, as a teenager, well, what do you want to be? What school do you want to go to? What do you want to study and all that? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I very, very much remember thinking in my head, I didn't say this out loud, thinking in my head, I just want to be happy. Because I could see other people. It seems like, that seems like a nice way to be. And again, it's like it was hard to ask questions back then. You don't want to let people know you were struggling. Especially as a teenager, you're graduating high school and you need to be figuring out college or what are you going to do with life? Are you going to be a lawyer or a doctor? Are you going to be a baseball player? You're going to be an astronaut, go in the military. And again, all I wanted to be is I just don't want to feel like this anymore. And so it was a slow drip, a slow widening of my worldview about change and mindset and beliefs and how to change patterns. And again, up until like literally, talking with you today, I'm still learning and growing, and I have a big long list of courses and classes and books I want to read about this kind of stuff because it's extraordinarily fascinating.
Well, yeah, and it is very fascinating. And I don't think many people know what hypnotherapy is. So why don't you define it for our audience so they can understand? Because I know people think it's smoke and mirrors,
Yeah.
those people that you see in the sideshows and
Yeah.
all of that. And that's not what hypnotherapy is.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate, because of TV and movies, have given it this a lot of misconceptions and myths that this is some sort of mind control or brainwashing or government conspiracy theory, zombie making, where you go assassinate the prime minister. That's not what it is. It's an umbrella term, really, about with that houses a bunch of different techniques and tools, so you change yourself on purpose. And it's really, you're not doing anything you're not already doing already. So it's not like putting somebody in some sort of weird, I don't know, mind control state. It's about just relaxing to the point of allowing the mind to drift off, the conscious mind, not unlike going into a daydreamy state. Everybody can do this, even if people may have tried hypnosis in the past. They say, well, I just can't be hypnotized. It's like, well, you couldn't be hypnotized in that particular situation. Maybe you felt uncomfortable. And the person you're working with, or maybe you just felt uncomfortable with the change work at that moment. I know there's some academics out there, universities, and tests that you take, and they say to see if you can be hypnotized. That's not if you can or can't. You can, because again, it's just this kind of alpha brainwave state, this daydreamy state you move in and out of all day long. And whether you're bored at a meeting at work, whether you're, remember maybe school, maybe there's a class in college or high school or somewhere where it was just wasn't your thing and it was boring and your mind drifted off thinking about the weekend and hanging out with your friends or got people coming over or you're driving. You ever had that experience and 1 or 2 minutes you kind of drift off and your mind starts thinking about the report that's due on Friday or
Hmm.
the weekend and stuff you got to get done and the to-do list. And also you kind of snap out of it or you find yourself in your driveway or your garage or parking spot or something. Well, you just kind of altered your state of consciousness, not in a super dangerous mind control way, but you just like being bored watching a TV show. Even watching TV puts you in the alpha brainwave state. And literally the biology of it is just how fast your brain is operating, how fast the brain cells are connected, shooting their little electrical pulses to each other. So right now, you and I and probably a lot of the people listening are in this present moment, focusing on this conversation we're having, this discussion, and we're firing about 18, 20 cycles per second in the beta brainwave state. But if, somebody loses focus, maybe a meeting at work or just even watching TV and thinking about something else, your mind or your brain slows down to the alpha brainwave state. We're firing about 12 cycles per second,
Mm.
enter the state of hypnosis. We can do this work in a crowded airport with your eyes open under fluorescent lights. Maybe somebody's having a panic attack or something. This isn't, something magical or mystical. The whole trope or the cliche of the watch, the pocket watch, you're sleeping. It's just like being bored back in high school math class. Many people listening may have seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, that movie
Yes.
from the 80s. The,
Bueller.
te- the teacher bored all those kids. Remember Bueller?
Mm.
The teacher bored everybody. He put everybody into the alpha, even theta brainwave state. The kid drooling on his desk. He's all out of it. He altered their state of consciousness by giving a boring lecture about economics. It's not about taking away control. It's really about giving back control because it's your subconscious mind. So you decide whether you're going to do it or not. All those, you see the videos maybe on YouTube of the street hypnosis. Somebody just goes up and says, you're going to go to sleep and go ahead. That was planned out. That was rehearsed.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
want to go viral. Even
It's a
those
TV
shows
show.
you see, yeah, even those shows you see in Las Vegas and things of, somebody's up on, a bunch of people are up on stage and are all dancing like Michael Jackson or singing like Elvis Presley or barking like dogs, quacking like ducks.
Doesn't
Every
work.
single person who got up there volunteered to be up there. You can't make somebody, okay, maybe you lost a bet, but I guarantee you'll be excused from the stage because you're not going to be a good candidate
Yep.
for a, 45-minute show or whatever. And who's that person? The hypnotist comes on, hey, everybody, welcome, and we're going to have a great show. And who are they going to pick? The introvert in the back of the room, hiding in the shadows, sinking down on their chair, really slowly, or are they going to pick the extrovert and the exhibitionist who got there early to sit in the front row to jump up and down and say, pick me, pick me? One person's going to give a better show. And even if they get up there and they all of a sudden get stage fright and they don't want to be up there, they're going to be excused from the show. That person is not good be a good choice. So you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. So in terms of what is hypnotherapy, it's just a process of quieting down that conscious level of mind. And that's where, again, where that boring, you're getting sleepy thing. Again, it's just a high school math teacher, the Ferris Bueller day off teacher. It's allowing the conscious mind to quiet down so you can access subconscious mind. Again, we're not doing anything you're not already doing. And so you're already creating patterns. You're already creating maybe feeling states of anxiety or anger or overwhelm or frustration or something else, resentment. And a lot of people who come to this work are already out of control because they're dealing with anxiety, so much anxiety. I got to do something about this. I'm so anxious all the time. Well, you're out of control. And what this work does is actually give you back control. And again, you can't make anybody do anything you don't want to do. So if you were listening to this and you tried hypnosis and it quote unquote didn't work, it's because you didn't want it to, maybe unconsciously. But something about that situation, maybe the person you're working with, the timing of it, it just wasn't the right time to do this deep healing work or whatever.
Mhm.
You, for whatever reason, didn't allow yourself because I guarantee you went home later, maybe watched TV or started, boringly wash the dishes or something, and you went into that state. So it just didn't happen in that situation, maybe at the university laboratory office research classroom because it felt uncomfortable. And then they said, whoa, you can't go into hypnosis. Well, you did it, you weren't skilled enough to help that person relax in
Yeah.
that situation. So it's really about the rapport, like anything, whether it's talk therapy, a surgeon. If you're not in rapport with the heart surgeon, you might want to try find a different heart surgeon, or the talk therapist or the massage therapist or the yoga teacher or whatever it may be. If you're not in rapport, I've been to lots of yoga classes. I didn't jive with the teacher. I went to a different class. It was not that the person didn't know what they're doing or just, I just didn't connect with that person. There's 8 billion people. We might not connect with everybody. And so you might not be connecting with the person you're working with. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that wasn't your
It's
person.
not working for them,
Yeah.
right? So it's when you work with childhood trauma or anyone who's traumatized,
Mhm.
right? Fit is very, very important.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get someone to relax, right? How would you get someone to work with you who's had a traumatic past to
Mhm.
connect and be able to get into that state?
Yeah. It depends on every situation's different. And even though oftentimes a tool or technique, we might use it in a similar way, everybody's situation's different. And whether the trauma happened last month or 60 years ago. I've worked with people in their 70s and 80s who had trauma and abuse happen when they were 5, 4 years old. And so it's really what we do. If they're coming to me, if they've made the appointment, they're comfortable enough and they understand this. And unfortunately, hypnotherapy is never at the top of the list. We're usually at the bottom of the list when people have pretty much given up hope. It's like, well, I guess I'll try this crazy hypnotherapy stuff that I've read about.
Yeah,
Maybe
the
they heard
hoodoo. I'm
podcasts.
gonna go get the hoodoo now.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's like they have no other option.
No.
They've done years and years of talk therapy or EDMR, and those things are very helpful and very useful and very healing to certain situations. But if the root cause or the core issue is unconscious, maybe because it happened a long time ago, or maybe so traumatic it's kind of behind the veil of that unconscious mind put away in that filing cabinet for protection, what are you talking about then? Yeah, the usual day-to-day stuff of work or relationships or family or kids or money or whatever. But if the root cause goes way back decades and you're not even really remembering it, what we focus on then is the feeling state. And if you get to the point where maybe you've heard a podcast, you read a book or an article or a friend recommends it or something,
Mhm.
and we talk when we ease into the pool. We're not just going to throw somebody into the deep end of the pool. And we have a conversation over the phone, a consultation call, make sure this is a good fit and explain a bit more and answer questions and emails back and forth. If somebody's really kind of nervous about it, maybe I'll send recordings to practice with beforehand. Maybe the session's a week out or 2 weeks out or something. Send recordings. Practice with this 15-minute recording. So you can just close your eyes, start listening to my voice, and whether you pay attention to the recording or just drift off, doesn't matter. But now you're getting used to the sound of my voice. Probably we're doing this over Zoom, not unlike this situation here, as so many of these kind of methodologies have gone to Zoom, whether it's talk therapy or relationship counseling or life coaching or doctor's appointment or something. I do most of my work over Zoom. And so you are comfortable and relaxed and feel safe in your home. That's why it works so well. In fact, there's research that shows that Zoom sessions work better than in-person sessions because somebody feels relaxed and comfortable in their home. And when they're done, they're at home. You don't have to drive through rush hour traffic to get back home. And so you're comfortable in your home, you're comfortable in your chair, in your couch, wherever you are. And if you'd like, close your eyes. If you don't like, don't close your eyes. Be as comfortable as you want. Move around. This is a meditation. Roll your shoulders through the session. Call for a timeout. Whatever, it's your session, and you'll heal in the way that you need to heal, because I don't fix anybody. And hypnotherapy in of itself doesn't fix anybody. You're going to fix yourself. This is the placebo effect. This is your mind creating the healing. And we know the placebo effect works because pharmaceutical companies use it because they know mind will heal the body. They have to account for that in their research, that they might accidentally influence people to heal themselves with the brochure about the new medication, about the office and the way it smells. It smells like an office where people heal. Or the paperwork you got to fill out to form the website you went to sign up for the research study. Maybe they're doing high blood pressure medication. Half that group is going to get the sugar pill because they know mind will heal the body through influence because they want to be healed. And so through all those various things I just mentioned, they may accidentally influence people to heal themselves. So they need to know how many they're influencing. So maybe 30% of the control group lower their blood pressure, not through the medication, but through mind. And the people who are actually getting the real medication, 40% get better. Well, they have to subtract 30% because maybe they influenced them to accidentally heal themselves through mind, not through the medication. So really only 10% got better, and that's good enough. They'll put it on the market for $80 a pill. But more people got better through healing themselves through mind. But there's no real big payoff in teaching people how to do that. There's no $1 billion stockholders, payout at the end of it. And so you can't copyright, you can't patent somebody's subconscious mind. So what this work really is about is teaching people how to access that healing power, where it maybe is physical healing, or maybe it's more of a mindset issue, a pattern that is developed over time, or maybe due to a trauma from the past that it's now forgotten and unknown, or maybe some other issue around a feeling state of anxiety or anger or resentment. This is not to blame the person or say it's their fault or blame the victim or anything, but you're the one who's doing that. So it becomes very empowering. So if you're the one doing it, you're the one who can fix it. You're the one who can undo it. And again, maybe all that stuff happened due to a traumatic experience, and that wasn't your fault. That it shouldn't have happened. Maybe it happened as a child, and unconsciously that child created safety armoring around themselves to keep themselves safe, to be small, keep their voice down, to hide. And that probably helped keep them safe as a child. That doesn't work when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. So you can change it. You're the one who developed it. Yeah, under duress and to protect yourself, but it's time to do something else. But until you change those instructions, why would anything change?
Well, because you're repeating the same things
Exactly.
in your
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
And people believe that, getting any kind of therapy, you're immediately cured, and you're not cured, right?
Yeah.
And these are tools to bring you along your journey. It's not to fix or take it away.
Right. Yeah. 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 And you made an extraordinarily great point. What you practice, you get better at. And of course, that's great when you're learning the piano or the guitar or the saxophone or something, or you're learning dance or you're learning martial arts, learning to walk as a child. What you
Mhm,
practice, you get better at because all the brain cells are connecting and wiring
mhm,
together. So we don't have to think about walking. We just walk or ride a bicycle, tie
mhm,
your shoes.
mhm.
You've learned something like dance or martial arts. You're a black belt in martial arts. You do it because it's connected to you. Well, but what if you've been practicing anxiety or fear or a certain pattern in relationships, certain pattern at work? Maybe there's some issue around authority figures and that promotion that should have been yours because you're the qualified candidate went to somebody else because, you weren't able to speak up for yourself.
Mhm.
You didn't even know you wanted the promotion because you learned that as a child and you've been practicing it and as a way to keep yourself safe. These are patterns that were learned and trained basically because you practice it over and over again, just not unlike learning to throw punches or kicks in martial arts, you train to do that. We train to protect yourself in this way. So train for something else. Practice something else.
Can it be applied to phobias as well?
Yeah, yeah, this works really well with phobias. Um, depending on what the issue is, there are certain fears and phobias that are come naturally, like to tigers and spiders and rattlesnakes and things like this. We seem to have some innate fear of things that are dangerous to us, maybe great heights. But then there are other fears, like speaking in public, or maybe even tests. Nobody's born being afraid of a math test. Or
No.
taking the MCATs or the LSATs or something to get into medical school or law school. So nobody's born afraid of that, but that's learned maybe over time because of our educational system seem to punish not doing well on a test. And so an innate fear comes from, well, I don't be punished. I don't want to get kicked out of this, school I'm in because I'm doing poorly. Don't want to repeat the grade, repeat the class. Well, those fears, because you trained yourself in a certain way, well, train yourself in a different way. Learn to come. Now, sometimes the work can be done in a handful of sessions even, but oftentimes those handful of sessions lead to practicing something
Mhm.
as homework, as in your off times,
Mhm.
because you may need to practice resetting your nervous system and
Right.
practice around taking tests.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of homework to do to practice. Just like, yeah, you can go to a martial arts class, but you're probably want to go to practice at home or with a partner or somewhere, or during the week, or like dance class. Maybe you go to dance class a couple times a week, but you're going to want to practice once a day or a couple of times a day even. And it's that kind of idea, like, let's say piano. How long is it going to take you to learn that piece of Mozart on the piano?
Long
Well, are
time.
you practicing 15 minutes once a week, or are you practicing an hour 3 times a day? One's going to get you to Carnegie Hall a lot faster. So it's what you practice, you get better at. So look in your life. What do you do most often? Is it being afraid of something? And again, there are things we need to be afraid of. That dark alley at midnight, even though it's a shortcut home, the edge of the Grand Canyon, the rattlesnake, the hiking out in Alaska, and you turn the corner, there's a grizzly bear there. That's not your friend. And so there's a certain amount of fear and anxiety that helps keep us alive, the edge of the big building or something. But there's also fear and anxiety that hinders us from moving forward, creates procrastination because it's scary moving forward to that promotion or to get that report done. Or because what if I don't do well, then I get a D? Maybe it's better just to watch TV or scroll on the phone and get that dopamine hit,
Yeah.
instead of studying. And so that those things can't, because it's their subconscious mind, it's their patterning that they created, maybe unconsciously, through a traumatic event, but they're the one who created it. Therefore, they can create something new, something different.
And so is that how you began to program yourself for confidence to move forward?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, precisely. If you're not confident in a certain area, practice. You may even want to link it to some other sort of confidence you have in your life. So,
Okay.
just as a broad example, probably, I'm guessing everybody listening to this podcast right now, watching it, is very confident that they can tie their shoes. Now, it seems kind of silly and ridiculous. Maybe they're confident they could walk down the street without falling over or tripping over or falling backwards. You're confident that you can walk down the street. You're confident you can tie your shoes. You're confident you can lock the front door. You're confident you could press the button on the computer to turn it on. These are silly things because you know you can do it. There was a time you couldn't do those things. There was a time
Mhm.
you couldn't walk. You couldn't tie your shoes. You had to have help to tie your shoes and to zip up your jacket. But now you are so confident that you think it's a silly thing to even register as being confident about. Imagine that is true confidence. So imagine now applying that to giving that speech at the conference next month, or taking the math test or
Mhm.
whatever test it may be, or going on that first date or asking for the promotion. Now it may take some practice. And that's where all these extraordinary techniques come of linking and anchoring, the Pavlovian effect, ringing the bell and the dogs salivate. There's a whole conversation right there. But neurons that fire together wire together. So the neurons that fire to create that confidence around tying your shoes, to get that feeling state in your body. Where is it in your body? Now let's link it to maybe pressing your finger and thumb together. Because the millions of neurons firing to create that confidence are now linking to the neurons firing to pressing my finger and thumb together, or to hearing that one particular song or that certain smell. Now they have nothing to do with each other, but neurons that fire together wire together. And now when you press your finger and you're giving that speech, that confidence comes to you. That's a
Mhm.
quick 30-second kind of reveal on how some of this works. And it may seem like a trick or like magic, but it's not. This is how the brain works. This is how the mind works. And we just take advantage of it and do it on purpose. You're doing it already. A
Mhm.
certain smell may remind you of something fun and pleasurable, like your grandmother's kitchen or your grandmother's cooking, or a lavender farm you went to on a field trip when you were a kid, or Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland has a certain smell. They really capture that stuff at Disneyland. They know how to do that. And so you can do it maybe accidentally, or you can do it on purpose. It's
Mm.
happening either way.
Yeah,
So why
it's
not,
it's gonna
create
happen
these
either way.
anchors on purpose?
Right, you might as well control it for yourself.
Yeah.
And, you talk a little bit about or something I read that you were talking about was getting yourself in state in the morning,
Yeah.
right? How is that helpful for
Yeah.
people?
Extraordinarily, because every athlete, every musician, every actor going out on stage or in front of the camera, they're going to put themselves in state of the person that they need to be.
Mm,
Now, we all wear different hats throughout our day, throughout our week, throughout our life. I myself am a husband, a father, and a son. I'm all those things as Craig Meriweather, as probably most of us are. Those are very different aspects of who I am. I operate differently in front of my parents as I do in front of my son, as I do in front of my wife, as I do in front of a client or being a worker bee at work, when I was a teenager. These are different aspects of me. And I need to put myself in the appropriate state. Hanging out with my son all day, maybe on a Saturday, and being a father, and then maybe I have a client in the evening, but I don't switch out of that state of being a father. That's
mhm,
very inappropriate. Or if I do hypnotherapy all day long and then I go out on a dinner date with my wife and I don't switch out of being a hypnotherapist, she's going to get real annoyed with me real quick, you know? And so you have these different states. So what state do you need to be to give that speech or to do the math test or to be the father or mother or the partner or the business person? And you can put yourself in the state that you need to be in. There's all sorts of different techniques and tools to do this. But if you haven't seen it, there's a great documentary about personal development and self growth that focuses on Tony Robbins. And I believe it's on Netflix. There's a plug for you. And it's called I Am Not Your Guru. And what's fascinating about it is just over the course of a week when he's doing one of those big, huge programs in an arena for 10,000 people, but you see him move through all the different stages of who he is.
mhm,
He does his own work. This is Tony Robbins, a guy who's been doing this work for literally about 45 years. He started in like 1980. And this documentary came out, I think, in 2018, something like that. But he's still doing the work. In the morning, he's doing his meditation work. He's jumping in the cold plunge. He's doing the jumping on a little trampoline to awaken his adrenal glands. That's his work, but he's still doing it. He didn't stop when he turned 40 and just kicked back and phoned it in. No, he's still doing his work he needs to do on a daily basis. He goes to the arena and he's talking to the producers and the backstage people. And that's a different Tony Robbins than getting on the phone to talk to his kids and his wife and the people who are scheduling the next events. But then he goes out on stage and they don't want to see Tony Robbins, the father. Tony Robbins trying to get his kids to eat their broccoli or being romantic with his wife or talking to his accountant about taxes. They want to see the Tony Robbins. And so behind the curtain, before he walks out on stage to the big, exciting music and the lights, he puts himself in state. And the way he does it is he kind of turns around and punches the air and does his thing that he's been doing for 40 years to become the Tony Robbins with the superhero Tony Robbins, to go out on stage and be the person they want to see. Just like I'm sure, I don't know, whoever, Beyonce or Paul McCartney or whoever it is, they're very sweet, lovely people just sitting backstage having a cup of coffee with them. But they need to be the Beyonce. They need to be the Paul McCartney when they get on stage. So they get into the state of being that person who's going to entertain 80,000 people in a stadium. And so the getting in a state of being the person at work, of career, of parenthood, being a mother is very different than being, CEO of a company. Maybe the exact same person, but they may need to, be in a different state. So maybe sitting in the car for 5 minutes before you walk back home or walk into work. Maybe you're a worker bee. What do you need to do to be the best worker bee, before you move up and maybe start your own company and become queen bee. What are you going to need to do to be? That's a very different, even though it's you have these dreams and this vision of who you want to be. That may be different than being a worker bee. Okay, well, who do you need to be? What state do you need to be in? What kind of confidence do you need to create? It's there, the confidence. Now you just have to apply it to maybe starting your own company, or asking that person out on a date, or, you know,
Which is
finally,
very hard.
dealing, fixing the relationship with your parent, whatever it is. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's very hard. That's why, so many of us kind of drag along in life,
Yeah, because
but you
people
have the
don't
ability
want
to
to
do
do
it.
it.
And I can't make anybody change. Again, this isn't control. This isn't, turning people because I snap my fingers or wave a pocket watch. This is allowing you to quiet down that conscious level of mind, that kind of gatekeeper that keeps the patterns going, even if they're unhealthy, so that you become the person you want to be. But you have to decide that, yes, now is the time for me to become that person. Yeah, that may not be to your 40s or 50s or 60s, but
Or never.
from the time when you say, yeah, it's time. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not here to fix anybody. Hypnotherapy in of itself doesn't fix anybody. You fix yourself, because you know what the problem is. Yeah, maybe it's behind the veil of the unconscious part of mind, but it's there. It's your mind. And you know what the problem is, because you're the one creating the armoring around yourself that may be
Well,
preventing you from moving forward.
believe it or not, time is up.
I
You
know.
went
I've been watching
so
the clock. I'm like,
fast.
oh God, we're done.
So what do you want to leave the audience with?
I think, of all we've talked about today, I think you're the one who probably nailed it on the head, is that what you practice, you get better at.
Yeah.
So what is it you're practicing? It's good, bad, and ugly. What are you practicing? What are you doing over and over again? And therefore, what needs to change in order to become the person you want to be? And so hypnotherapy can help with that. Various other techniques and tools can. I like this for myself because I use it in my own life. And so I love the idea of change, of creating it yourself, because you know what the problem is. You, even on an unconscious level, you know what you've been through to create the patterns in your life that protect and keep you safe. Maybe at a stage now where it's becoming unhealthy and not helping you move forward. But whether there's something to change in life, whether it's your anxiety, your habits, even your sense of purpose, feeling now it's time to really move towards that. And it hasn't shifted to the level that you want yet. Maybe there's something going on subconsciously. And, a great starting point is finding out more about hypnotherapy. I'm happy to talk to people, do consultation calls or email. I have a free ebook, The Power Behind Your Beliefs, which goes a lot more into this. And you can get that at my site,
How do people get it?
craigmeriweather.com.
How do
Well,
people
you can
get it?
go to
That's
the easy way, because I know Meriweather, there's a lot of different spellings, and I have a very unique way of spelling it. But if you just went to releasethepast.com, and it'll take you to the right place, and you'll see up in the menu bar, free ebook. You just download that, and it tells you more about just, the extraordinary power of the mind and the placebo effect and how change can happen. And that's a great start. And if you want help with creating this change, I'm here with these techniques and tools, and work with people around the country and around the world, and see if this is the right path for you. And I'm happy to talk with you about it.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, because I believe a lot of people probably will be looking
Yeah.
that up, because just listening to you becomes very calming. So,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
and thank you everybody for tuning in and watching or listening, however you get your podcast, to this episode of Just Healing. If you'd like to learn more, get involved, or find community, visit menhealing.org.